You know, they show up on campus with two identities and one massive dream. They're students, sure, but they're also elite athletes, recruited to compete at the very highest level. For so many of them, this is it, the last step before going pro. But what happens when that dream slams into a pretty harsh statistical reality?
Well, according to the NCAA, the odds are just staggering. On average, less than 3% of all student athletes will ever get the chance to play their sport professionally. Just think about that. For every 100 of these incredible competitors, 97 of them are going to hang up their jerseys for good right after graduation.
And that's the big question, isn't it? If the pros aren't the end game for almost everybody, then what's the point of their education? What are the real forces shaping the single most important academic decision they'll make? What to major in? To really get to the bottom of this, we're going to explore what you could call the 97% problem. That's the massive challenge of actually preparing the overwhelming majority of student athletes for their life after sport. Because here's the crucial part. Their major isn't just some box to check to stay eligible. It's supposed to be the foundation for a career that's going to last 4 decades. I mean, the stakes could not be higher. To understand this, a really insightful study actually sat down with 29 senior Division I student athletes to hear exactly how they navigate this high-stakes choice.
So to get why they make the choices they do in college, we have to rewind. We have to go back to where those career dreams first started taking shape, at home.
And this model from the study is fascinating. It basically shows that before an athlete even packs their bags for college, their career goals are already being molded. They see what their parents or other family members do for a living, they develop their own passions, and all of that comes together to create this initial blueprint for their future. And check this out, it shows just how direct that influence can be. You've got Taylor, a wrestler, whose dad is a lawyer, and what does he want to be? A lawyer. Ben, a tennis player, sees his dad's work as a financial analyst and decides, hey, that's what I want to do too. You see this pattern over and over again. The family home provides that first and often most powerful script for what a career looks like. But what happens when those childhood dreams, the ones shaped by family and personal passion, run headfirst into the grueling, time-sucking reality of being a Division I athlete? Well, that's what we're calling the collision course. There's actually an academic term for this, role conflict. And it's basically the daily battle between two identities. The athlete role demands a crazy amount of time for practice, for travel, for competition. But the student role demands its own time for classes, labs, and hitting the books. For a lot of these athletes, those two roles are in a constant tug of war. And this isn't just theory. Listen to Kevin, a football player. He wanted to get into the sciences, but he quickly realized there was no way he could manage the time commitment with football. So, what did he do? He switched to sociology, mostly because a bunch of his teammates were in it. It wasn't a choice driven by his passion for a future career, but by convenience and what everyone else was doing. Darius, another football player, tells a really similar story. He was interested in kinesiology, which makes perfect sense for an athlete, but the required classes clashed with his practice schedule. His workaround? Major in zoology instead. I mean, he's trying to make it work, but his athletic schedule is literally dictating his academic path, pushing him into a major that's just not the right fit. And this right here, this is the core of the tension. The student is supposed to be playing the long game, thinking about a 40-year career, but the athlete is forced to live in the here and now, where the number one goal is just staying eligible for the next game. That long-term exploration, it often gets sacrificed for short-term survival. So this conflict, it leads every single student athlete to this critical fork in the road. And they all have to make a choice. Is my major about building a future, or is it just about staying on the field? The study's second model lays out these two diverging paths so clearly. On one side, you've got choices driven by the athletic department, stuff like practice schedules, staying eligible, and listening to coaches and teammates. On the other side, you have choices driven by real academic advisors, personal interests, and actual career goals. Which path they end up on really depends on who they're listening to. All this pressure can lead to a phenomenon that academics call identity foreclosure. It sounds complicated, but it's exactly what we saw with Kevin and Darius. It's when you commit to a major way too early, without really exploring your options, just because it's the easiest path. It's like choosing your identity before you've even had a chance to figure out who you are or what you want to be. So you end up with two totally different outcomes. Path 1 is a path of convenience, right? It leads to a degree that might be completely misaligned with what they actually want to do after college. But path 2, the one driven by real interest and expert advice, leads to alignment, where their education becomes this powerful launchpad for the rest of their lives.
But here's the thing, it's not impossible to find that second path. Take Cameron, a swimmer who majored in mechanical engineering. How'd he do it? He actually looked for help outside the athletics bubble. He found a campus advisor who could give him the specific info he needed and help him network in his field. He basically broke the mold by actively going out and finding that alignment.
Okay, so we've seen these two paths, one of convenience and one of passion. What's the big picture here? What's the real end game for the 97%? And what does this all tell us about the system they're navigating?
So the whole journey is pretty clear. These career dreams start at home, but then the intense pressure of college sports forces a choice. And often it's for an easy major that leads to this huge misalignment with their future. The key to success, as we saw with Cameron, is breaking out of that athletic bubble. And what this really reveals is a system that, a lot of the time, prioritizes the immediate needs of the athlete over the long-term future of the student.
And all of this leaves us with one crucial final question. If 97% of these student athletes are preparing for a life after sport, shouldn't the schools they play for fundamentally rethink how they support both halves of that identity? Maybe it's time to focus a little less on just staying eligible and a whole lot more on setting them up for a lifetime of success.